here. All right, we're live. Cool. So today I'm going to be reviewing the version 9.2 updates to Ascribe. So what's new in version 9.2? I will be focusing mostly on Ascribe Coder, and we'll be going over the code from regular expression tool. We'll also be looking at the new feature that allows us to keep track of the person who reviewed a verbatim, a translation, a transcription, or marked a response as quality reviewed. So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a brief look at the Copy Share Manager and a new feature there, as well as the questions page and a little new feature there. There are two new administrator features that I'll talk about and maybe look at, and that's a new time accounting report, as well as some updates to the associates page. And then if we have time and any of you would like to stick around, I have also set up to review the Illustrator updates as well. So lots of fun stuff in this release, but we'll just go ahead and get started. I'm going to pop right over to Supervisor Studies, and I'm going to go into my training exercises 2 and pop into exercise 8. There we go. Okay, so the first thing to point out in Coder is that we do have a new tool, Code from Regular Expressions, and that's what I'm going to spend the first part of this session on, is the new Code from Regular Expressions tool. Before I even do that, I do want to go ahead and return some of my responses, and I'll just return my uncoded responses here. And just pointing out, I do have 128 uncoded responses. I don't have any coded responses in this particular question at this time. Okay? So also I want to show that we do have some expressions in this code book. So if I click on my Dixie code, you'll see that I've got a very simple expression for Dixie. And you can see that that expression is actually suggesting, there we go, that I apply Dixie to this part of the verbatim. Okay, so I'm just showing you that. For those of you that might not be completely familiar with regular expressions and what they are, they're basically little programs that we put in behind our codes. So I can show all my regular expressions in my code book. And again, I did that by clicking on the codebook settings and clicking the regular expressions option here, toggling that on. And now you'll notice that under each code, it's showing me what my regular expression is. Okay? So you can tell we've got some regular expressions here. Now, the request was that we wanted to be able to accept all the regular expression suggestions. Okay? So we now have this tool that's called Code from Regular Expressions, and basically it's doing just that. It's allowing us to accept all of the underlying suggestions in our verbatim responses. Okay? So when I click on this, you'll notice that we have two tabs, an Apply Codes tab and a Remove Codes tab. We're going to start with the Apply Codes tab, and by default, it does show us two different options here. Code responses. So what do we want to code? Do we want to code all the responses? So that would be coded and uncoded. We'll get back to that in a minute. Do we want to just code the uncoded responses, or do we want to code just the displayed responses? Now, for me, all three of these are the same because I don't have any coded responses in this particular question, and I've displayed all of my uncoded responses for this particular question, so it's all pretty much the same, but I'll get into the nuances of that. So we're going to start with the uncoded. We also have this ability, codes to apply. Do we want to just apply the first matching code in the response? What that means is that we'll go through, and the first part of the response that had a regular expression match would be coded. Okay? So I'll go ahead and I'll do that and just show you how that works. I'm going to hit Apply Codes. It tells us it's working, and we just coded 101 of 128 responses. And as we go through, let me close that. As we go through, you'll note that it only applied the first regular expression suggestion, okay? So only the first part of the response that had a suggestion. So here, instead of solo and Chinette, it just applied solo, okay? So popping back up to this, I can also remove codes that were applied by the regular expression tool. Okay, so any responses that were applied from a regular expression, I can remove. And the options here are to remove all codes that are applied by regular expressions, or just those without quality check, that weren't quality reviewed. So I'm going to just go ahead and remove those so we can get back to our first step here. Okay, so again, code from regular expressions, apply codes. The other piece that I meant to say here is also it tells you how many of your codes have regular expressions. So in this case, 5 out of 5 of my codes have regular expressions. All right, so this time I'm going to choose all matching codes. And when I choose all matching codes, I get some more options in case of overlapping matches. All right, and I'm going to just go ahead and apply all codes. So what that means is that if a regular expression matches, it's going to apply all the codes that match the regular expression. So I hit apply codes. All right, and you might notice immediately that Chinette up here applied 2 codes for the same part of the response. That's because I have 2 codes in my code book, Chinette without a TE on the end, and Chinette with a TE on the end. The regular expressions are a little bit different. This one is the CHIN, this is CHINE, okay? So when I told it to, go back here, when I told it to apply all codes, I was saying, hey, if there's any overlap, for a particular part of the response, apply both codes. So it has done that, okay? You might want it to do that in some cases, but usually we probably not want it to do that. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete these guys the easy way here, okay, and go back to 0 responses coded, okay? Popping back up here, I'm going to do my uncoded, all matching codes. And this time, in case of overlapping matches, I have the option to apply the code matching with the longer text match, okay? So the code with the longer text match, in this case, would be the CHINE, okay? Or I can apply the first matching code in the code frame. Applying the first matching code in the code frame takes the sort order of the code frame into account, okay? And in that case, it would apply the first code that it comes to that matches that piece of the response, all right? Now, this is most like what we do in Phrase Analyzer today. So for those of you that use Phrase Analyzer, we code according to sort order. So it's the first one that it comes to in your code book that gets applied, all right? But now we're going a step further and saying, hey, apply the code matching the longer text match. So in the case of a brand list where we might have Coca-Cola or Coke and Diet Coke, we would want to apply for, if it matched Diet Coke, we'd want to apply Diet Coke. If it matched just Coke, we'd want it to apply Coke. So it allows us to get around that without rearranging our code book, all right, by matching the longer text match, the one that matches the most. So if I go ahead and I hit apply codes, there we go. You'll notice that here now it just chose the Chinette code. It didn't choose both of those. All right. Now something else that I want to point out is that it does retain order of mention. So notice, and this is something that Phrase Analyzer did not do, it retains the order that the order of the response mentions. Okay. So in this case, Hefty, Solo, Dixie. Hefty came first, Solo came second, Dixie came third, order retained. Solo, Chinette. Solo came first, Chinette came second, order retained. So just letting you know that it does also retain the order of mention. Okay. Another thing that we do is that the coding method, okay? So the coding method is marked as regular expression. What that means is, and just so you can see this here, I'm going to go into applied code. So coding method, okay, I'm showing that here. I'm showing the actual username, the date, and the coding method. The coding method is marked as regular expression. So that gives us the ability to not only use the remove that we've been using, so to remove the codes for anything with the coding method regular expression, it also allows us in our filters to filter by the coding method regular expression. So this gives us a way to always access those responses that were coded by regular expression. So we could go through and quality review or look at those or do whatever it is that we need to do with those. Okay, so we can always get back to those that were coded with a regular expression. All right, so I went over first mention coding, went over in case overlapping matches. Okay, so now I'd like to go into, let's see, let me add a code here to my code book and explain a little bit more. Insert into, and I'm going to just add a code for cups, just because it's something that I know is in my response. And I'm going to add a regular expression for cup. Okay, so I've got a new code here called cup. All right, and is that what I wanted to do? Yes, okay. And what I can do, and I've added a regular expression for that. So I can come here and I can say, you know what? Let's code all this time, not just the uncoded. Let's go ahead and code them all, okay? All matching codes, and I'll keep it on apply code matching longer text, and I'm going to hit apply codes. So this all allows us to go back in if we've added new expressions to our code book, or we've added new codes to our code book, and we want to retain the original coding. Maybe we've done some manual coding in here too. We've done some regular expression coding. We want to retain the original coding, but go ahead and apply the new regular expressions. I hit apply codes, and you'll notice that it goes through, and it has now, anywhere that cups were found, it has applied cups, okay? So it didn't mess with the other coding. We didn't have to undo it and redo it. We could just go ahead and code all. So that's what that little option allows us to do. All right. So now one more thing that I want to show. I'm going to pop back out to my questions page, and we're going to run down here to this exercise 8 power, because I want to show you how this deals with singleton codes. I'm going to just take off my regular expression view and note that we've got 2 codes here that are singletons. So that means that these codes can't be applied with any other code. So they have to exist by themselves when they're applied as a code. All right? But if we go through this and we hit, let's go ahead and apply, we'll just do our uncoded. Let me bring up my responses first. I like to bring up my responses before I do this because I think it's kind of cool. Uncoded. Oh, I've got a filter on. Give me 1 second to clear my filter. There we go. All right. I'm glad I did that. Bring up my uncoded responses. There they are. Okay, 750 responses in this guy. I'm going to go ahead and I want to code my uncoded, and I want to apply all codes, and no, I want to apply the matching longer text, all matching codes, and hit apply codes. So it's going to work through this. Okay, and note that it tells me 692 of 750 responses were coded, but this operation has created one or more instances where a singleton code was added in addition to other codes because I told it to code all, okay? So what I can do is click here, and it takes me to the singleton rule violation, and I know that it's my none-nothing code. All right, that's cool. So I can return the responses for my none-nothing code, and I can find the one, here it is at the very bottom, I can find the one that was bad, and I can remove those codes, and now I should have no more singleton rule violations. We're good on the singleton rule violation, okay? So just wanted to point that out, that it tells us when there's a singleton rule violation, okay? All right. So, Antoine, I'll pause there. Were there any questions?
No, not at this time.
Oh, okay, Antoine, you can't, because you're not an organizer, you can't see it. There actually was a couple of things that came in, so let me grab those. Okay, we covered the first question. The second question, when I added cup, did it keep the order of the codes or always add the cup at the end? Okay, so when I added the code book, when I added cup to my code book before, I added it by clicking on the code book node. And when we do that, it's going to add the code at the very top. Okay, but if I wanted to add a code within, it would add that code wherever I click and choose to insert code. Okay, and if I wanted to add it to the bottom of my code book, I could do, or insert code book into, and actually it would add it to the top of the net here, so you can see where it would add it. So just a little review on where codes are added when we insert codes. Joe, do you understand that differently?
I think what she means is you coded everything regular expression. Then you added a new code and then did the expression again, and she's adding the order of mention.
Yes. So when we add the new code, let's go back into that one real quick. Thank you for that question, Kelly. So we added the new code cup, and I'm going to return all my responses. How about coded responses, and hit go. Okay. So that's interesting. I believe it's going to add it. Yeah. So this one, you see how it added at the end? So it's not going to retain the order of mention when we do, like if we add new codes to the code book, it's not going to resort it. So if you wanted to retain order of mention, you would want to delete all your coding and then apply. Okay? So the question was, when I added cups, does it retain the order, you know, does the coding retain the order of mention, even though cups comes second here? And it does not. It keeps the original codes that were applied and then just adds the additional ones onto the bottom. So if you were in a case where you were keeping the order of mention, you would either want to go fix that. You would either want to fix it, so we can move that up and fix it, or you'd want to go and uncode and recode. Okay? Cool. All right. Any other questions about the code from regular expressions option? And I will tell you, I know there are some things still in Phrase Analyzer that we're looking to be implemented in various places in Ascribe, and we're going to be following up on those things throughout 2018. Okay. Cool. So the next thing, moving right along, that I want to talk about is the ability to track the person who marked something as quality reviewed. Okay. So when we mark things as quality reviewed, we now, okay, Martin, hold on one second. I see you have a question. And in lieu of time, Martin, can I come back to that question after we get through the quality reviewed? There we go. Okay, cool. We'll come back to that. Okay, so we're talking about quality reviewed now. And we now have the ability, or we now track who marked a response as quality reviewed. And not only do we track who marked a response as quality reviewed, we also track who marked a verbatim as quality reviewed, a translation as quality reviewed, the transcription as quality reviewed, and the notes field as quality reviewed. So we track all of those things. And we also allow you to display the user who marked something as quality reviewed, the verbatim as quality reviewed, translation, transcription, notes as quality reviewed. All right? So when I search and hit go, you'll see that now it says Laura Rice marked this as a quality reviewed on 1/18/2018. Now, the question that has already come up is, do we keep a timestamp with this as well? We do not. It is the date of the user session that we keep here, so we don't actually note the time that it was marked quality reviewed. It's just this user session's date. And also the other question is, what if Joe goes in and changes this? What if he unmarks it and then rechecks it under his username? Who is the quality reviewer? The quality reviewer is always the last person who marked it as quality reviewed, okay? Once Joe changes it, like if he goes in and unchecks and then rechecks it, he becomes the quality reviewer, and I'm not thought of again. So I'm lost to it. So that it's just the last person who marked it as quality reviewed. Okay, so the new options that we have again are to show the reviewer. Okay, so we have that option to show the reviewer here. And again, you get to choose whether you want to show, do you want to show the quality reviewer for the coding, for the verbatim, the translation, the transcription, or the notes. All right, so we have that option, and we also have the option to filter. So we have the option to filter by the reviewer. So in this case, I'm the only reviewer in this one, but if I go back out here and pop into my questions, we can go into exercise 7, and I believe in exercise 7, if I go to the quality reviewer, yes, we've got some that Antoine reviewed. So I can bring up just the ones that Antoine reviewed when I search. So now I'm seeing the ones that Antoine marked quality reviewed on 1/10/2018. Okay, so those are the options that go along with the quality reviewer. Again, it just tracks who marked it quality reviewed. The date stamp is the date of that session. We don't keep the time. And then you can display who quality reviewed what. And we do retain the information, the quality review information. I'm hitting the wrong thing. We do retain the quality review information from all 5 of our quality review fields. Coding quality, verbatim quality, translation, transcription, and notes. All right, so that's the quality review option. Make sure I hit all of that. Oh, the other thing to note, if you mark things as quality reviewed in other parts of Ascribe, for instance, in edit responses or edit respondent, it does retain that as well, okay? So that quality review field is the same throughout Ascribe. Okay, so now I'm going to pop into the questions page, and we're going to talk about the first things first. I want to show from the questions page how we now will display, clicking on the wrong thing, Laura, this one. Oh, exercise 8 power, there we go. We now do indicate the Singleton codes in the overview. So if we click in the code book column, we get an overview of the code book. Before version 9.2, we didn't display the Singleton codes. Now we do show that these guys are Singleton codes so that you've got a little more insight into the code book. So that's just a very simple little thing that an update that we did. And then in the Copy Share Manager, so if I go here and I go to Copy Share Manager, and we are displaying this in a table format, we get to choose what we're showing in our table. So again, if we're displaying the table format in the Copy Share Manager, okay, table format, we now can click on the pane settings and choose what we show here. So if we don't want to show shared questions, we can turn that off. If we don't want to show the question text, we can turn that off. Okay, or if we don't want to show the code. So you get to choose what you're displaying in your table or in your grid. All right, so that's the new feature for the Copy Share Manager. All right, 2 more little things to talk about. Again, under Administrator, under Time Accounting, under the Time by Study option, we do now have a new report, and that new report is a time by, if I right-click, it's time by question type and associate. Okay, so if we're ever needing to see by associate the question types that people were coding, we can see that here. So we can see that Ascribe support, question type open, and what they were coding there. All right, so that's the new time accounting report. And one more, and that's our associates page. And for the associates page, I'm going to pop over here to another session of Ascribe. This is our associates page, so this is just under Administrator Associates. And of course, Laura, there we go. Sign in. I was wondering if that had expired. So associates page, there we go. Okay, so this is our associates page, and this associate page has been updated to look more like the jobs page, to use the same kind of interface as the jobs page. So we now have an option to choose columns, okay, and by default, we always have username and last activity displayed. Last activity is new, but the last activity tells us the last time that user has logged in. But we can, we can display just those things that are important to us. Okay, so for me, I like to have privilege. Come on, there we go. I like to have my privilege, and maybe I want to have my start date. And I hit OK, and now I've got username, privilege, start date, and last activity. So we can show just those things that are important to us now on the associates page. And again, that's just for the administrator, but it's a new feature, so I wanted to make sure I talked about that. So now I will pause. And how much time do we have left? We've got 4 minutes. Will the quality reviewer show the user reviewer on previous studies that were quality reviewed before version 9.2? You know what, Anthony, I don't recall if that is, I will check into that and get back to you. So the question was, will the quality reviewer show the user reviewer on previous studies? My inclination is to say no, but we'll check on that and follow up with you to make sure on that one. And I'll send that info to everybody who attended here today. All right. And Martin, I can go ahead, give me 1 second, and I will unmute you. So Martin, what is your question?
Just unmuting myself. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Not so much a question as a query. I just wonder what the thinking is with the code by regular expression and codes that have already been set as singletons, why we would, or why you, Ascribe, inverted commas, would invent a process that would overrule their use and actually allow another code to be applied. Would it not be better to not allow the code, multiple codes to be applied if one of them is a singleton, and to warn us by exception that there could be some in the code book?
So we discussed this.
Rather than put the codes on and tell us you might want to look at these and take some codes off, not put them on and tell us you might want to look at these and put some codes on, make a decision.
Yes, and we spoke about that. We actually discussed it in great detail, and this way won out. This is the way that most of us thought that it should work, because we want to code as much as we can and then just point you to, hey, go review this, okay? Especially with our nothing and our don't knows, because we don't want to, a lot of times that nothing might be applied with something else. So yeah, we discussed this. And the idea, and also, just so you know, if you mark something singleton after you've already got coding done, you could still have that singleton applied with other things. That's the whole reason that we have this little, the singleton checker here, to let us know that, hey, your singleton might be applied with another code, because there's a couple of ways that could happen in Ascribe. Yeah, and we just thought more coding would be better. So again, that's something, and if the users group wants to discuss that further, that's absolutely, we will absolutely listen to what they have to say. Thank you for that. Okay,
thank you for your explanation.
Yeah. Anything else from anybody else? If you like, I can unmute here. I'll go ahead and unmute everyone. This is always kind of fun. There we go. And if anybody else has anything, any comments. Okay, and Lisa, yes, this video will be posted on YouTube, probably within the next 2 hours, depending on if I don't get interrupted in my quest to get this produced. So. Oh yeah, and also next Tuesday we do have another session scheduled. It will be similar to this one. I did want to go over the Illustrator things today if I had time. We ran out of time, so what I'll do is go ahead and schedule an Illustrator review for next week as well. Okay. Okay. Anthony, a YouTube link is just